This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
UCLA's women's basketball team got a key win over number 11 Colorado last night. The 8th-ranked Bruins won by 8 at Pauley Pavilion. Bruins guard Kiki Rice had 20 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists. The Bruins improved to 11-5 in the Pac-12. Top 5 women's basketball teams in this week's AP poll: undefeated South Carolina, Ohio State, Texas, Stanford, and Virginia Tech. USC is 7th. A couple of troubling stats the Lakers need to address in a hurry if they're going to make the playoffs. The Lakers have ended the first quarter trailing by double digits 13 times this season. They were down by 17 after the first quarter at Phoenix on Sunday. The Lakers are also the only team among the top 10 in the Western Conference with a losing record on the road. The Lakers are 11-19. They've got some serious work to do over the final 23 games. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte with the KBLA Talk 1580 editorial. In a public opinion survey commissioned by KBLA Talk 1580 and conducted by Viteris, the black voters surveyed were highly enthusiastic about the March 2024 primary. The race for Los Angeles District Attorney is being hotly contested. Incumbent DA George Gascon's efforts to implement progressive criminal justice reforms have generated pushback from within his own office, the broader law enforcement community, and some in the general public. He was the subject of at least 2 failed attempts to qualify recalls. The concerns about crime are reflected in the polling results of black voters. Nearly 1 in 4 have been victims of violent crime or have someone close to them who has been a victim. 1 in 5 black voters have personally been victims of property crime in the last 2 years. A majority of respondents feel less safe than they did a year or 2 ago, but they reject the notion that criminal justice reform has gone too far. This year, black voters will be looking for candidates who speak to the complexity of the issues as opposed to a one-size-fits-all approach. Nearly half of black voters have an unfavorable view of DA Gascon, but his challengers are largely unknown. Nearly half of the black voters are also undecided, which means there's a clear opportunity for candidates to connect with black voters. Our poll makes 3 things abundantly clear. Black voters matter. Black voters are closely following this race, and the candidates for DA have a lot of work to do. KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to the mobilization and use of the franchise to empower our audience to identify and pursue their interests in advancing equity, inclusive representation, and multiracial solidarity. For KBLA Talk 1580, I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte. We welcome your feedback.
The minute she heard the theme song, she started bobbing her head, patting her foot, and swaying in this chair. I was just saying to somebody the other day that we are out of that era, long past that era, where TV shows had great theme songs. I mean, you hear music and you know the show. You hear this and you know it's Night Court. Or you hear the theme from Sanford and Son, or the Jeffersons, or I can do this all day long, right? TV shows just don't have great theme songs like they used to. So, Marsha Warfield, when you hear the theme song from Night Court all these years later, you feel what?
I feel I'm waiting for the Easy Rider sign to go by. And, you know, when I first heard it, I wasn't on the show. I was doing stand-up. And so I didn't get to see the show that often. I was always on stage. So hearing the song, it was like that show that Paula Kelly was on.
So that's the theme song. Take me back all those years ago to how you got on Night Court. And I'm asking that because back then, there weren't a lot of sisters who were holding it down on network shows. And there you were on Night Court. So take me back to that era, that bygone era, how you got on that show.
Well, I got on that show, you know, because that's a multi-part question.
Okay. Well, we got an hour.
Okay.
And I want answers to all my parts.
Okay.
So go for it.
So back then, there wasn't a black television industry like there is now.
There was no Black Hollywood.
Right. There was no nothing like that. So if you wanted to be on TV, you were pretty much going to be on a white show. And I was looking at clips from my past, and I'm like, oh, I was the black girl on a lot of shows. So when Night Court came along, you know, they had an almost entirely different cast. Like I said, Paula Kelly was there, and Selma Diamond was the bailiff. Unfortunately, Selma Diamond passed away in the at the end of the second season. It was really a 1.5 seasons. It was a half-season pickup, and then 1 full season. So she was replaced by Flo Hallop, who I had done a pilot with the year before. And Flo passed away, like over hiatus. So I get this call, and they say, well, you heard about the bailiffs on Night Court? And I'm like, yeah, vaguely, you know. And they said, well, they want you to come in and interview. And I was like, I don't want to. Because I started in this business as a stand-up because I wanted to do stand-up. And acting was a whole different thing. I had only done a little bit of that. And so I'm like, I keep going on these auditions, and it's the same 8 black women for all of these auditions. And we don't get it. Then they come in and bring in Gladys Knight or something, and she gets it. I mean, it was like, okay. So I'm on my way to Seattle to do a gig. And they said, well, before you get on the plane. So I was really kind of peeved. So I had a sweat. I had a pack of cigarettes I smoked back then, and I had a wallet. And I walked in with my sneakers and everything. And the producer, Ryan Holwiggy, we call him Rhiney, he was from Chicago too. And he had a fire going in the fireplace and the air conditioning on. It was summertime, and it was hot. And so I'm like, why you got the fireplace? He said, because I like it, and I can. And so I said, okay. And we sat down, and he started talking about Chicago, and he knew who I was. And I was, okay. And he said, we don't know what we're going to do. We've lost our last 2 bailiffs, and we don't know if we're going to have a recurring bailiff to work opposite Bull, or if we're going to come up with a permanent one. I said, fine. He said, well, I'll give you a call. We'll let you know what's going on. And I said, okay, bye. We had sat and smoked. He saw my cigarettes. He said, give me one of the cigarettes. So we just sat and smoked and kikied. And I left, got on a plane, went to Seattle, got off the plane. They picked me up and said, call your agent. You got it. So I had gotten booked for 1 episode. The first episode of the 4th season. And that was it. So I didn't do the second episode. I got picked up during the second episode when they were shooting the second episode. So then I panicked. Well, I had panicked before because I had done the prior show, which was stressful, and a few other things, but not a whole lot of acting. So I said, I got to take an acting class. I got to do something. I got to learn how to do this. I don't know anything. So my agent said, they got a perfect class. It's called Acting for the Camera. You'll go in, and they'll, we'll work that. 2 weeks is all I had. I go in, they tell me to get a book and come back the next week. So I buy the book, I open it up, it said, the preface said, the secret to acting is to keep it simple.
Hold that thought. The secret to acting is to keep it simple. I want to hear the rest of this story. You heard her say it was a multi-part question, and I wanted the answers to all my parts, and that's exactly what she's doing, and I ain't mad at her. So the secret to acting is to keep it simple. We'll let her pick up on the story when we come forward, but Miles, give me some more of that Night Court music in just a second here. But I've got questions already. I mean, this is why I don't often ask multi-part questions, but when you do, you get a lot of answer. And now I know where I'm going the rest of the hour, because she's already told us that the bailiff died not once but twice. Are you really telling me you want me to audition for a job? Well, the persons who've had it twice have died? I won't talk about that. You heard her just casually mention, I'd been on the Pryor show. That Pryor show would be Richard Pryor, the GOAT. We're going to talk about Marshall on the Pryor show. You heard her say that I was smoking back then. Back then. talk about that. You see, this is what it means when you listen charitably, when you listen generously. The guest always tells you where to go, and I know where I'm going the rest of the hour with Marshall Warfield. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on! What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
Los Angeles County needs a new district attorney.
I'm Jeff Chemerinsky, and I'm running for district attorney. I have served as chief of the Violent and Organized Crime section of the Los Angeles United States Attorney's Office. I've never lost a case. I have experience managing large teams of lawyers and staff, and I've done it in the largest federal judicial district in the nation. I've been endorsed by civil rights attorney Connie Rice, by former LA County Supervisor Yvonne Braithwaite Burke, and by the New Frontier Democratic Club, the oldest and largest African-American Democratic club in California. I'm a lifelong Democrat. As your next district attorney, I'll do everything I can to make our community safer and reform our justice system for every community in Los Angeles.
Jeff Chemerinsky, Democrat for district attorney, endorsed by the leaders we trust. Our community can trust Jeff Chemerinsky to stand up for us. Vote by March 5th. Paid for by Jeff Chemerinsky for District Attorney 2024.
Girl, I have a secret. When I get stressed out, I get sweaty. That's why I use Secret Clinical Antiperspirant. It's like my own secret weapon. For 72 hours, I get Secret's strongest protection against sweat caused by stress, heat, and activity, because you know how crazy life can get. Plus, it's made with advanced odor fighters that don't just cover up smelliness. They help prevent it from happening in the first place. Believe me, if I weren't wearing Secret, I'd be a hot, smelly mess. Thankfully, Secret works.
Eggs are a staple in our diets, and there's only one egg with more delicious farm fresh taste plus superior nutrition. Eggland's Best. With more vitamins, including 6 times more vitamin D and 10 times more vitamin E, plus 25% less saturated fat than ordinary eggs. Available in so many delicious varieties: classic, cage-free, and organic. Eggland's Best. Better taste, better nutrition, better eggs.
Let's get back to more of Tavis Smiley right now.
More of Marshall Warfield right now. I am delighted to have the legendary, the iconic, busy comedian Marshall Warfield join us live in studio. You know her from years ago when I first fell in love with her when she played Roz on Night Court. Well, Night Court is back, and so is Roz, which means that Marshall Warfield is busier than ever. I ain't got to her stand-up dates yet. I'll share some of those. She's on the move, as always, but slow down long enough to give me an hour to come in studio to talk to me live. And I asked her, in case you just tuned in, a question a few moments ago, and she said, Tavis, Negro, that's a multi-part question. Well, she didn't say Negro part, but that's how she looked at me, like, Negro, that's a multi-part question. So she started giving me a multi-part answer, and I'm loving every minute of it because now I know where I'm going the rest of the hour. But you were just on the precipice of telling me about this acting class you were about to take because you felt like you didn't nail it when you did the first episode of Night Court. So now you say, I got to learn how to do this. I'm a stand-up. I am a stand-up, but I got to learn how to act. They tell you, buy this book. You buy the book, and the preface says, the key to being a great actor is to keep it simple.
Correct.
Pick up Marshall Warfield. Take me on, girl.
So I closed the book and never went back to the class. It don't get no simpler than that.
You don't get no simpler than that.
There you go. So,
And can I just tell you, that's why you're a great comedian. I did not see that coming.
Well,
I did not see that coming.
I never went back. And so when I got on the set of Night Court, you have to remember at this time, the must-see TV was owning television not only for the night, for the week, forever.
For those who weren't around then, that's NBC.
Yes.
NBC must-see TV.
It was the Cosby Show, Growing Pains? Not Growing Pains. I can't. The Michael Keaton Show, and then Cheers, then Night Court. And that was often 1, 2, 3, 4. And so I'm walking into a top 10 show, top 5 show, and John Larroquette at that time had been nominated for an Emmy. He won an Emmy 4 years in a row.
Every year.
And so many that he said, take my name out of competition. He wouldn't compete anymore. So now I'm walking in and to this environment, and the first day I'm there, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And Harry called me over to the bench, and he said, how you doing? I said, I don't know what I'm doing. He said, we don't either. He said, and I said, but I'm a stand-up. He said, I'm a street magician. I just watch these guys and do what they do. And so that's what we did. And then I learned so much from them and from just watching how they worked. And they were very receptive to me. They were not, even though they were still grieving. Yeah. They were very welcoming, and I learned on the fly.
Yeah. Did it not, speaking of grieving, did it not scare you or spook you? Did not cause you any pause that you were being asked to come and audition for a role that 2 people had died in?
Well, this might not sound really good.
Keep it real.
But at the time when people would ask me about that, I said, you know, I'd have killed a couple more white women to get this job. So.
See, this is what this is what I love about comedy, man. I'm thinking now of my friend Joan Rivers.
Yeah.
When she'd always say, too soon, too soon, too soon. I used to laugh and love when Joan did that. Too soon, too soon. Because I don't care what it is, even if it's death, what comedians do is find some humor in it. They find a way to make you laugh, even if the subject is death.
Yeah. Well, I was upset and grieving over Flo because I had met her and worked with her, and she was so nice. And she was, you know, Flo had been in show business as an actress since the 30s, and came up as a child actor and stuff. And so I had learned a lot from her. Yeah. And but the comedian in me said, no, you know, you do what you have to get what you need.
I would have killed a few more people.
Okay.
Hilarious. You already addressed this. Let me just come back and make sure I heard you correctly. So here you are, this black woman, and there aren't a whole lot of y'all, as I said, at that moment, holding down on major network TV shows. And I thought I heard you say they always treated you nicely. You don't have any horror stories about being a black woman and being walked on and maltreated and mistreated and dissed and dogged out. You ain't got none of that for me?
Well, no, not really. I mean, I have a lot of, no, I ain't doing that. Yeah. Kind of stories where they would give me scripts and you know, this is still the era that Robert Townsend was talking about in Hollywood Shuffle.
Great movie.
Where they would ask you, you know, could you do it a little blacker? And we all were like, you know, you knew it was coming. Yeah. And you just say, no, I don't know what you mean. Yeah. And so then they would go, you know, like this. Yeah. And do it a little blacker. It was the most bizarre thing.
That's got to be the funny part right there.
That's it.
Watch it making, I mean, I would do it. I would have done it just for the laughs. To make this white person show me what they mean, black. How to be black, exactly.
It was straight up step and fetch it. Yeah. Once removed. Yeah. Minstrelsy. I mean, it was terrible. So I just didn't take those roles, and I decided very early when I first started going on auditions, given the state. This was 1976, 74. I started in 74. From 74. On, And I decided that I would never, as a black woman, play a maid
Yeah.
or a whore.
Yeah.
Because those were the roles they gave to black women. And I am proud to say throughout my career, I have never played a maid or a whore.
Yeah.
And so maybe, I don't know, but maybe that's why I was never treated like a maid or a whore.
No.
So I would
it ain't what they call you, it's what you answer to.
You know,
as they
so
say.
I got lucky. I got lucky to be around people who
that ain't lucky. I want to correct you.
respected me.
I correct you respectfully. That ain't luck. That is self-determination. That's called integrity. That's not luck. You decided what you were going to do, what you weren't going to do. I said to somebody the other day, I've been fortunate in my career to be friends with a lot of people, including Marshall Warfield. And if I've had so many conversations with Denzel. D and I discuss this all the time. Mr. Poitier was a dear friend of mine. We had lunch together every other Tuesday for 27 years.
Wow.
And you talk about sitting at his feet for all those years. What I've learned from watching Mr. Poitier and talking to him and hanging out with D all these years is that both of them will tell you, if they're here right now, that their careers have been defined not by the roles that they took, but by the roles they turned down.
Correct. Yeah. Sometimes you got to be willing to be hungry.
That's
you know,
exactly
you got to
right.
be willing to. You got to know what it is you want to do. I didn't want to just do jokes and just, take anything. I wasn't of that school of thought that you have to kiss butt to kick butt. I was, not a go along. I'm not going along to get along with nothing.
Nobody, yeah.
And no.
I
So
got it. I like it.
I turned down a lot of things that turned out to be very lucrative, and I have no regrets.
There you go. That's what I want to hear. No regrets. No regrets. I'm still laughing at the producer of the show. You walked in. He was burning. Had the heat on. You asked him why. He said, "Because I like it and I can."
I can.
That reminds me. That's so Hollywood. That reminds me of Steve Bochco, the great TV producer. Speaking of NBC,
I worked with him, I believe.
He had a lot of hits. Bochco once said to me, "Tavis, in this town, here's your goal." I was just getting started. I said, "What's the goal, Mr. Bochco?" He said, "The goal is to get to a point where you either have FU money or an FU attitude." Yeah. And in my case, he said, "I have both." I was like, "Okay, Mr. Bochco, but that's that attitude, right?"
Right.
I'm doing it because I can,
Well,
and I like it.
Nobody asked us to do this.
Yeah.
This is something we decided to do, and there are no blueprints.
Yeah.
We figured it out step by step, without any guidance, knowledge, nothing.
Yeah.
And so it has to go how you say it go, because you only can be successful doing you.
Yeah.
You can't be successful doing somebody else. It just ain't never going to work.
You got to be authentic. Got to be authentic with it. All right, so now I want to start picking apart some of these things you just slid right on by, because your career has been so full and so rich. You just like making references that ain't nobody picking up on but me when I'm paying attention to you, Marshall Warfield. So that prior show that you just casually referenced would be the show starring one Richard Pryor.
Richard Pryor.
The GOAT.
Yes.
I was just watching an episode of that a couple of weeks ago. The episode was the one he played the president, the first black president.
Right.
In the press conference.
Correct.
And that thing was hilarious all these years later. Made even more funny by the fact that now we've had a black president.
Right.
But Pryor was out there doing this skit and doing this bit about it, which was just so funny to me. What was it like being in Richard's orbit? We'll talk about Paul Mooney in a minute. What's it like being in that orbit, but being a part of that show, which is just a jewel in the Richard Pryor story?
Well, you can't really tell that story without mentioning Paul Mooney.
Yeah.
We were at the Comedy Store. The Richard Pryor show was cast out of the Comedy Store.
Mm-hmm.
All of those ensemble players were stand-ups from the Comedy Store, brand new, all of us. And so Paul Mooney was the one who said they can do it and recommended us for certain parts. Richard at this time was coming to the club, and I had met him before he got the show because he was working out his Bicentennial Nigger and other albums there. So I got to meet him there. And then when the show got picked up, because he did a pilot, 6 months later it gets picked up and put on at 8 o'clock. And then you knew it was never going to fly. But
you knew up front it wasn't going to work.
Not at 8 o'clock.
Not that stuff.
No, it's the first thing up is in the Cosby spot. It's not going to work. And so the first sketch might have been the president sketch, and I got to play Roberta Davies, and it was like after we did that, then Richard said, "Well, this is our ensemble," and they just hired us per sketch from that point on, and it only was 4 shows. But Richard was committed to doing what he wanted to do
his way,
the way he wanted to do it, and he did. And so you ended up with 5 counting the pilot, 5 great shows, and that's it.
And that was it. Now, the alternative or the flip side to Pryor doing it his way and only having 5 episodes is Cosby, who also did it his way.
Right.
But the show ends up being iconic.
Right.
And we can talk, there have been all kind of conversations about Cosby since then. We ain't going there. That ain't what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is you were a part of that lineup at the moment that Cosby helped save NBC.
Yes.
When that show was turned down not once, not twice, but by every network. I know this story well. Everybody turned down the Cosby Show until NBC finally got it right. Brandon Tartikoff, God rest his soul.
I was going to say, you got to mention Brandon.
Brandon Tartikoff finally made that right decision, and the rest, as they say, is history. It changed television forever. What was it like just being in that rare air when the Cosby Show was all that and then some?
Well, it was, it's hard to explain. At the time, it was exciting and all that, but I'm brand new. I'm too stupid to be scared. Even though I'm apprehensive and I got this. I don't feel like I belong in this with these luminaries. But Brandon Tartikoff also was from Chicago and also knew who I was, even though I had never met him. And so it goes back to that. It's not who you know, it's who knows you. And these people had known of my stand-up and know me from Chicago, and that's how I got in these shows. Brandon also did Night Court a couple of times, and there were so many black people on NBC at the time. I said, why did you change it to the Negro Broadcasting Company? And he said, it's nothing but Cosby.
Close enough.
Okay.
We shout out one Negro at least, nothing but Cosby. No, those were heady days. Those were heady days when NBC just ran everything, and Cosby was at the epicenter of that. I digress on that for now. When we come forward, I got so much more to talk to Marsha Warfield about. We haven't gotten to her stand-up. We haven't gotten to the Netflix is a Joke festival that's coming up. She got a bunch of dates coming up as well. But when we come forward, I want to just spend some more time talking about Paul Mooney specifically. We talked about Pryor, but I miss Paul Mooney.
Yes.
He was your longtime friend. Paul and I were cool and good friends, but I didn't know him the way you knew him. But I just want to just spend a few minutes in tribute to the late, great Paul Mooney. And then we'll talk about a few other things. Our guest in this hour is Marsha Warfield. She, of course, made the role of Roz famous on Night Court, and Night Court is back, and so is Roz. And Marsha, again, busier than ever, but I'm glad we got a few minutes left in this dialogue with Marsha Warfield, who you're listening to right now, and I'm glad about it, on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Boeing is being accused of potentially retaliating against employees who report safety issues with the company's airplanes. The Federal Aviation Administration has issued a report that details a disconnect between Boeing's management and workers on safety culture. The report makes over 50 recommendations and calls on the company to develop an action plan to address all of the issues. One Maryland HBCU is asking for help to win grant money. Bowie State University has the chance of winning $150,000 in campus improvement grants from the Home Depot. Funds would be used to make improvements to the Prince George's County campus. You can vote online as many times as you'd like to. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Still trying to clear troubles as you travel mid-city. If you're taking that Santa Monica Freeway 10 west at Normandy, looks like a crash taking up 3 of the left lanes. Coming off the 5-101 is where we're seeing that busy drive, and then it's going to be tough all the way towards that 405. Sylmar, cruisers still working the 5 north as you get to the 405. It's the truck bypass that's shut down. They're doing some electrical work there. Commerce, a collision from earlier, wrap it up on that 5 north at Slauson. That's clearing from the left lane, but as far back as Rosemead, La Mirada, we are seeing the busy drive.
We've all felt the impact of rising food prices. For families in poverty, they're facing malnutrition and even death. You can feed a family for a month with your $50 donation to Compassion International. Just text the word radio to 97646.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
UCLA's women's basketball team got a key win over number 11 Colorado last night. The 8th-ranked Bruins won by 8 at Pauley Pavilion. Bruins guard Kiki Rice had 20 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists. The Bruins improved to 11-5 in the Pac-12. Top 5 women's basketball teams in this week's AP poll: undefeated South Carolina, Ohio State, Texas, Stanford, and Virginia Tech. USC is 7th. A couple of troubling stats the Lakers need to address in a hurry if they're going to make the playoffs. The Lakers have ended the first quarter trailing by double digits 13 times this season. They were down by 17 after the first quarter at Phoenix on Sunday. The Lakers are also the only team among the top 10 in the Western Conference with a losing record on the road. The Lakers are 11-19. They've got some serious work to do over the final 23 games. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
All I need is one mic.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. Recently, the Washington Post ran a major story which in sum reveals that racial discrimination in jury selection persists in America. Most often, the practice occurs through a legal tactic called peremptory challenge, which allows an attorney to strike a potential juror without having to state a reason. In the 1986 Batson Doctrine, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the use of peremptory challenges to exclude potential jurors solely based on their race violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. By the way, the late great Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall despised peremptory challenges. New data in the Washington Post story underscores that nearly 40 years after the Batson decision, the problem remains widespread. One study in the Deep South found that black jurors are being challenged and dismissed at double and triple the rates of other prospective jurors. Bottom line, it's racist, it's wrong, and it's pervasive, even as research shows that racially diverse juries spend more time deliberating, make fewer errors, and can result in fairer trials. One of the arguments in the Ninth Circuit appeal, brought by former LA City Councilman Mark Ridley Thomas, is about violation of that Batson Doctrine. In its case against MRT, the U.S. Attorney's Office struck black women from the jury pool based on demeanor and employment status, a clear violation of the law. A long list of high-profile black law professors, historians, and justice centers have now filed amicus briefs in support of MRT's position. But the irony of a black elected official who for more than 3 decades represented the best interests of his black constituents, having black women voters struck from his jury pool is repugnant and morally wrong. So much for being judged by a jury of your peers. MRT's legal team argues correctly in its filing that given well-established law and legal principles set forth by the Supreme Court, Ninth Circuit, and state courts and legislatures, the Ninth Circuit should likewise reaffirm and clearly state that applying facially neutral justifications in discriminatory ways to target black women and other protected groups presumptively violates Batson. I couldn't agree more. For KBLA Talk 1580, I'm Tavis Smiley. We welcome your comments.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. He's rooting for everybody black. Everybody black. More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
My guest is Marsha Warfield, and I'm delighted to have her live in studio right about now. Legendary, iconic as a stand-up, and we all know her and love her as Roz on Night Court back in the day, and Night Court is back. I was just saying to her, y'all on the same lot, still Warner Brothers, of course.
Still Warner Brothers, still Burbank.
Yeah. What does it feel like to reprise a role all these years later?
It's kind of surreal, you know. It's like waking up. I've said it before. It's like waking up at your prom when you're 70. Yeah. It's it's like, you never expected to be there again, and so I had nothing to compare this to, other than back in the day, and that was a half a lifetime ago. I was an entirely different person. So
well, at least you know what you're doing now.
Yeah, I hope so. I have a vague recollection.
Yeah, you know what you're doing this time around. We mentioned Paul Mooney earlier, and nobody argues with the fact that Pryor was the GOAT. There's no argument there. But I've said this many times, and I say it with just nothing but love, deep love for Richard Pryor. Pryor doesn't pull off all that he does without Paul Mooney. Yep. It just doesn't happen the way it happens without Paul Mooney. So I wonder if you just might say a word about Paul Mooney.
Well, a lot of us don't happen the way that we happen without Paul Mooney.
Yeah.
Paul, like I said, he helped cast the Richard Pryor show, but he often, if there was a gig and you were right for it, he would recommend you. Whenever I had the opportunity to hire him, it went both ways.
Symbiotic, yeah.
And when I met Paul was the first night I went to the Comedy Store when I got there in 1976, March 5th, my birthday.
Wow.
And it might have been March 6th. Anyway, I went to the Comedy Store. It was a Friday night, I believe, and Spoon was at the door in his tennis shorts and polo shirt with a sweater tied around his neck, like, doing an ad for Newport on the tennis court. And he said, yeah, baby, come on in. I'll introduce you to all the comics. And he introduced me to all the comedians as they came in. Leno, Letterman, all of those guys were still working there. And then for the second show, he said, I want you to meet Paul. And he says, this is Marsha Warfield. She's a new comic from Chicago. And I said, hello. And he said, this is Paul Mooney. And I said, hi. He said, Mr. Paul Mooney. And I said, well, okay, sir. And I gave him a salute.
Yeah.
And then from that point on, we were friends. I watched him work many times. Most of us, like most of the black comics at the Comedy Store at that time, we just waited for Paul not to show up so we could go on, because once Paul went on, nobody else was going
That
on.
was it. He killed it. That was it.
That was it.
Yeah.
But Paul had a great, and I have to tell you, you did that when you listened to what I said, and then went from there. Paul listened better than anybody. His writing was a reflection of what you said. He could write in your voice, because you think you're just talking, and he's writing down what you're saying and then put it in a script form and give it back. And it always worked. It always worked, and it seemed like, how did he do that? He listened so well.
I say all the time that the more charitably you listen, the more generously you listen, the better you are as a host, but the better you are, I just think, in life across the board. I said to somebody the other day in a speech, part of what's wrong with our society right now, there are many things, but one of my indictments is that there's too much monologue and not enough dialogue.
Yeah.
And dialogue only happens when people actually listen charitably and generously to others. And so it works for me, and it worked for Paul Mooney. And so I just wanted to give a little shout out to.
And I was lucky enough, I have to tell you, at the end, one of the last shows he did, I was on that show.
Yeah.
I had just got back into stand-up, and Dick Gregory passed away.
Yeah.
And Paul was supposed to work with Dick Gregory. And they asked me to take that spot. So I opened for Paul then. And I got to work with him. I got to get a comedy award with him and do a few shows with him at the end.
How did comedy become your thing? And I ask that in part because there's so many great artists across the board. I mean, I love Chicago for many reasons. It's my favorite American city. I live in L.A., and I shouldn't say that too loud, but I love Chicago, right? My friends know that. But one of the reasons I love it so much is there's so many great people from and in the city of Chicago, where we're heard right now, WVON. Shout out to VON in Chicago. But I love that city. But there's just so many great artists over the years who've come out of that city, black, white, and otherwise.
Yeah.
But I was thinking before you walked in the studio today about all the great comedians that have come out of the city. I mean, you can start with Bob Newhart. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them, right?
Right.
But Chicago is just a place just rich and full of artistic genius. But how did comedy become your lane? How did you know that was your thing coming out of Chicago?
I had no clue.
Yeah.
1974, Tom Dreesen had just broken up with his partner, Tim Reed. I've told this story by road a million times. So he had just broken up with Tim. Tim and Tom was the first
know him well.
interracial
Comedy
team.
duo, yeah.
And the twist was that Tom was the streetwise guy, and Tim was the conservative guy. And they worked for years. So Tim moved to Los Angeles, and Tom was working out his stand-up on his own. And the comedy clubs were just coming to be. The Comedy Store opened in 1973, I think. And the Improv had been open, but it did music and comedy. When they moved to Los Angeles in about 74, 73, something like that, they were doing all comedy. So the all comedy thing was brand new. Tom started a Monday night, which again was a new kind of thing, at a club called the Pickle Barrel, and there was a write-up said you could go and then work out. I ended up going, 2 o'clock in the morning, did my debut. They called the new comics virgins, so I walked on stage and said, my name is Marsha Warfield, and I'm a virgin, so please be kind. And I've said it before, but it's the truth. I got a laugh, and a light shone down from above, and the ancestors wrapped me in their arms and said, fool, this is what you do. And from that point on, I never, ever considered another profession, another job.
Even when you were on stage and didn't kill,
yes,
you never considered anything else.
Never.
Yeah.
And that was the second time I went to the Pickle Barrel.
Yeah.
You know, the first night was great. I was great. The two guys, drunk guys at the table, and the 9 comedians that were left loved me.
Yeah.
And so I had a great time. The second time I went up, I bombed. I ate a big one.
Yeah.
And I never thought about not coming back.
See, yeah. I did. As part of a charity thing one time, I accepted a challenge to do a tight 5. And it worked. I worked with some of my friends who were, comedy writers in this town, helped me get my material together. Kind of like the president does every year for the White House Correspondents' Dinner. So I had my tight 5 together, and I got up, and it worked. And because it was me, they're like, Tavis is going to tell jokes, not Tavis, not Mr. Serious Tavis Smiley. So I went up, did my tight 5. It worked. I loved it, and the joy, what you just described, what it feels like to make people laugh that way.
Yeah.
To just, it did something to me.
Right.
But it almost killed me too. I was like, I would never do. I survived my Tide 5, but I would never do it again. So when you say you couldn't think of doing anything else,
not ever again. I never considered anything else.
That's funny stuff. All right, when we come forward, Marsha Warfield is on the road. I'm going to share with you some dates where you can check her out. We'll talk about the Netflix as a Joke comedy festival at which she will be appearing, and a few other things. Just delighted to be in dialogue with Marsha Warfield right now on Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do Black history every single day. In fact, as the only Black talk radio station west of the Mississippi, we are Black history. Our annual Black History Month luncheon is fast approaching, and we want to be sure to give you ample time to get your company, organization, church, or group to join us at this year's celebration on the last day of the month, Thursday, February 29th at noon. Last year, we honored iconic local Black media personalities, including Pat Harvey, Jim Hill, Mark Brown, Beverly White, Sandy Banks, and Pat Prescott, and raised $20,000 in scholarships. This year, we're honoring Black Hollywood creatives who have used their artistic genius as climate justice champions. At this year's luncheon, we will be showcasing and sharing their inspiring work on our big screen. Plus, a scrumptious meal, live music, great company, and lots of fun with your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts. So contact us today at info@smileyAudiomedia.com or call 323-290-4690. That's info@smileyAudiomedia.com or call 323-290-4690. We hope to see you Thursday, February 29th as we close out Black History Month. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your Black.
It's never been faster or easier to be a voter. Look for your vote by mail ballot in the mail. Fill it in and drop it off at a mailbox on your way to work, on your daily walk, or when dropping the kids off at school. Save time and vote early. Make a plan to vote at plan.lavote.gov. That's plan.lavote.gov. Brought to you by the Los Angeles County Registrar.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Sometimes the best part of these conversations are the stuff that happens off air, and I have to stop the guests. Like, stop. Don't tell me. We're going to discuss that on the air because I don't want you to reprise it. It ain't never, Sade said, never as good as the first time, right? Okay. So I don't want to try the second time. It doesn't come out quite the right way. So I stopped Marsha Warfield mid-sentence when these words came out of her mouth because I don't want her to have to do it a second time. We were talking, and Marsha just dropping bars and says to me, Tavis, I believe that your dreams are your life's blueprint. Your dreams are your blueprint. Now unpack that for me.
Well, we think of our dreams as something that is beyond our grasp, beyond our reach. But the reason why you have these dreams is because that's what you're supposed to be doing. And if you just follow your dreams, it won't be easy. You don't really know, dreams can be confusing. But if you follow your dreams, chances are you'll be doing things that you've always done.
In other words, there's a reason why it's already in your subconscious.
It's always done. As a 5-year-old, I was taking joke books out of the library. I had no clue about being a stand-up comedian. I never, ever thought about being a stand-up comedian. But I am doing what I always did. And once you commit to, okay, this is my dream, this is my thought, this is what I want, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm being shown, and go with it, you might not make whatever it is you conceive of, but you'll be on a path that's for you.
I'm going to hold on to that the rest of the day and for a few days to come and just noodle and marinate on that thing, that your dreams are your blueprint. As I said, there's a reason why it's already in your subconscious. So your dreams, Marsha Warfield says, are in fact your blueprint. I said to Marsha that one of my favorite movies is a film called Broadcast News. And in that film, William Hurt, great actor, in that film there's a line uttered by one of the characters. It simply says, what do you do when your life exceeds your dreams? What do you do when your life exceeds your dreams? I kind of responded when I heard that line, like I responded when I heard Marsha say your dreams are your blueprint. It just backed me up. And what I realized about that question, what do you do when your life exceeds your dreams, is that the answer is pretty simple. You dream bigger dreams.
Right.
When your life exceeds your dreams and you dream bigger dreams, there's a friend of mine once told me, if you tell somebody your dream and they don't laugh at you, then your dream ain't big enough.
Okay.
Your dream ought to be so big that you tell them, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and then Negroes start laughing at you. Then you know you're on to something.
Okay.
If you tell folk your dream and they say, oh, then your dream ain't big enough.
But also, I find in our community, when they say they ain't going to let you, they're not stopping you. They're just basically saying, I love you and I'm afraid. I don't know how to help you. I don't know what to do for you. So they ain't going to let you do that. But really, it's a challenge that, yes, they are. Yes, they are. But they are not saying, like I said, they're not trying to stop you. They just don't know how to say, I love you and I can't help you.
Yeah, that's deep. That's deep. You're preaching now. The right Reverend Dr. Marsha Warfield is preaching. And now I'm laughing because we're all the way back to Hollywood Shuffle. That was his grandmama, baby. There's always work at the post office.
Of course.
She loved him, but she was afraid to tell him these white folk ain't gonna let you do this in Hollywood.
And they ain't gonna let you. You got to make them let you.
There you go. Remaining moments with Marsha Warfield when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Watch out! You got me!
The galaxy is safe once again.
In the pretend universe, kids play with pretend guns. In the real world, it's up to us to make sure they don't get their hands on a real gun. If you have a gun in the house, keep it locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Tips to help improve your credit score in 2024. Establishing credit is an important key to achieving financial health, but building a credit history from scratch can feel challenging since you need credit to build credit. First, what does it mean to build credit? All consumers have a score between 300 and 850. You want your score to be as high as possible as lenders look at your credit score to make loan and credit decisions. A good credit score shows you have a track record of borrowing money responsibly. Remember, it's never too late to build or rebuild your credit. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase & Company.
to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
This is Tavis Smiley hanging out with Marsha Warfield, and I've enjoyed this hour having Marsha in studio. Legendary, iconic comedian, and still doing it. I was just telling her it must feel good to have another circle around the sun. You're just going around again.
Big 7-0 come March 5th. I'm growing old bodaciously.
I like it. Growing old bodaciously. And she's back. Not that she ever went anywhere. Actually, she did go somewhere. You did retire for a little bit.
For a good little
bit.
Yes.
So let me just say this. After an overlong period of retirement, she is back and growing old bodaciously, but still doing her thing. Back for revenge is Marsha Warfield, tackling topics like politics and being black, and my favorite, her love affair with pizza. But I'll let her do the stand-up. That ain't my job. You can catch her on Night Court. She's back playing Roz again after all these years. So Night Court is back, and here's some dates. March 15th and 16th, she's in New Hampshire.
With Martha Wash and Linda Clifford.
I love
that. Norma Jean Wright.
Yeah.
It is a wonder. It's so...
The First Ladies of Disco.
Such an honor to be on that show. It's so much fun.
Yeah. That's 15 and 16 of March in New Hampshire. May 6th, she's here in L.A. at the Masonic Lodge of Hollywood.
Yes.
That's part of the Netflix as a Joke Festival.
It's also the Book of Marsha.
Yeah, I love it. The Book of Marsha. I love that. So Netflix has this festival here in L.A., and they basically take over all kinds of different venues. Right. So Marsha is on May 6th, the Book of Marsha, May 6th, as part of the Netflix as a Joke Festival. That's at the Masonic Lodge. And then August 5 through 8, you're going to be Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a couple more things happening.
I know there is. I'm just trying to throw a few of them out there, just to prove to people that as you approach 7-0, you ain't slowing down.
But I got to say, while I'm sitting here in this beautiful studio of yours, thank you so much for having me here. And I just want to say how this Black History Month.
Yes, it is.
How proud I am and to have seen the things from where I started to where they are now. And I just wish that my other black people, we have this thing now where everybody's in competition and everybody is dissing everybody. But if y'all could just see how beautiful you are to me, see yourselves the way I see you. We watched videos last night of just regular R&B the talent, the artistry, the craft that went into all of that. I sat there grinning like a footlight, like they're my kids. There's so much to love, and we need community. We have community. I talk about Paul, talk about Richard, talk about Spoon, talk about all of the people whose shoulders I stand on, and who the Della Reeses that came before us. When I think of all of that and how expansive and how wide open their embrace has been of me and of each other, I get a little disheartened that we don't see just how, not only how far we've come, just how vibrant
we are
and beautiful we are. No. It's not about renaissances. It's not about, it's always been, you've always been so much more magnificent than we've allowed ourselves to be seen, or that they've allowed us to see ourselves.
I can't close no better than that. We are some bad people.
Yes.
There's no question about that. I say all the time during this month, quoting Du Bois, the great black intellectual, would America have been America without her Negro people?
No.
And the answer is no.
Of course not.
You take black folk out of the American experiment, it just falls flat. We are some bad people.
Yes.
And I'll close it right there. Marsha Warfield, you a bad sister.
Thank you.
And I thank you for this time.
Thank you for having me.
That's our show for today. Back here tomorrow, Lord willing, to do it all over again. Until then, thanks for tuning in to Tavis Smiley. And as always, keep the faith.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.